Hi, this is Mike, and in this video, we're talking about the larger pattern. So if you notice the wave structure that I have labeled here at the highs, you'll notice something very interesting. Right here in this area, you can see a very important clue. We have a D and an E, right? There is absolutely nothing else this pattern could be, because this D and E, a zigzag should not be here, right? It should not be here at all, given that this here is supposed to be, well, what I thought before, possibly a zigzag. Now, zigzags don't start with this type of move. This to me is a DE pattern. It's perfectly clear now, but before it was complex. I didn't understand it 100%. Right here, I'm labeling out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Waves 1 and 3 similar in length. Wave 5 is shortest. This here is a top. That means that everything that's come after this move is yet an incomplete beginning of a large correction. Right? This is what I believe. Like I've put everything I've ever said about Bitcoin together, mashed it all, sifted and sorted, thought about it, given it days, marinated, come back the next day, the next day, the next day. And the evidence is overwhelming to the point where I have to say that this is the top. This is the top. Now I'm going to talk about what could happen from here, but I want to explain this pattern first. So my understanding is that wave 3 ended here. Now, this pattern was confusing to me, but then I realized the potential for wave 1 to be a weak 5-wave move, right? And this is where price can come back in wave 4 and touch wave 1 and 2. So I believe this is a type 2 weak 5-wave move. And then we had a small wave 2, which has all the corrective components within that pattern, a wave 3, 4, 5. So straight 5-wave move with a weak wave 1. Okay. So then what's this? This is, in my opinion, another expanded wave 4, right? What happened here, I believe, is A, B, C, D, E at the highs there in the last move. Now, why would this happen? Well, I'll explain that to you in a sec. So if you go back here, you remember that I had this other expanded count, right? We had wave 3 here. We had A, B, C, D, E. So far we have 2 expanded wave 4s, okay? 2 of them. Why would that be? Well, in my opinion, it's alternation, because at the lows, the wave 2s were small, okay? The wave 2s were small, short and sharp, right? So I don't have the information, the data that talks about that, what happened here. But to me, I think about it logically and I think, well, 1, 2 happened here, and then we had another 1, 2. Very small wave 2 correction. Okay. And then we go to wave 3. From there, we have expanded 4, 5, 4, and 5, and done. And that wave 5 there length could be the same length as the original wave 1 down here, but we just don't have that data. So to me, it's like putting the puzzle of the missing pieces of the puzzle in here by having observed these corrective patterns to the very smallest degree. So I think what's going on here is that not only did we just top out, but then I ended up drawing the channel. All right, so I'll show you on the weekly the channel that it created, right? So if you go ahead and join up wave 4 and wave 2 at the low here, you'll notice a couple of things. You'll notice that we had wave 3 price action jumping out of that channel, coming back in, and then the correction expanding out of it again. Wave E ending back in the channel. Obviously, wave 3 is where I put the end of the channel, so it's not by accident I put that there. But those 3 points, end of wave 2, end of wave 4, end of wave 3, and you can see what happened with the price along the way, right? How it then eventually weakened to the point where, yes, there was expansion in wave 4 at the highs due to whatever caused it, right? In this back here in this wave, it was wave D. Back here was wave B. Up here, sorry, it was wave B. So to me, what happened here was we just ended the correction, we topped out, and then we broke out of that entire channel. And that entire channel there, to me, is important because, okay, there's a couple of reasons. So one, it tells me that, yes, this is done, this is over for the whole first move up. Nothing special about it, no weak patterns, just a straight 5-wave move. So then how's this going to play out then? Okay, so there's the other thing I wanted to mention is that price typically retraces back to the previous 4th wave of wave 3. So given that that has now become $3,000 as the low point, it's no longer down here where I had previously marked it, because that's previous wave 4 of wave 3. Wow, it is back down here, right? And that there is a slight problem. Okay, so how would this play out potentially? Okay, so the first thing we need to see is, in my opinion, we need to see an A wave. Okay, now back to the market symmetry talk, which I like to talk about a lot. We had this 3-wave move here, which I believe was actually like this, right? The corrective patterns ended up higher. So wave C was actually not just a little bit longer than wave A. It was just the correction was expanded, and that's fine. So from this point here, I draw the conclusion that due to symmetry, we will likely see a wave A that comes back down a certain distance to make the first move, right? So that first move, which is the first move of a correction. So after all this history of Bitcoin, we've only seen like not even about 500 days worth of correction, right? Now, 500 days worth of a correction for minimum 4,000 day move, that's really not likely, right? It's not likely that 500 days is going to correct this entire move, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So for me, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to see a 5-wave move down. Now, forget about symmetry at this point, because what the waves here tell us is that this 5-wave move down has only just gone and started. Okay, so how low will it go? Maybe it could go back down to 3,000 just for the first 5 waves, right? Or it could do something else that we don't know. So at this point in time, I believe that this is only just gearing up for a move lower, and it's actually going, it almost has to go down from here due to it already being too much of a sideways thing going on, right? This thing is literally at the maximum sideways it can go. It has to start going down very soon, right? Because it's going to look disproportionate for a 5-wave move, which is going to be the first wave of a zigzag down for wave A. Okay, so what is the other scenario? What could be the other scenario that we're seeing here at the highs? Well, there is one more, and I have mentioned this slightly before, but I'm not too sure how much weight I'd give it at this point. So if we have to see price come back to the previous fourth wave of wave 3, that would take it back to where it started, right? And that would be the highest point. Look, it might even come back to the top of wave D as support, right? It's 1,190. I don't know exactly how crazy that's going to get, but we just don't know, okay? If it's going to be a shallow correction, then we could at least expect it to come back down to 3,000. Any lower than that, and that's at this point in time unknowable. Okay, so what is the alternative for what's going on here in this current pattern? Well, I did say this is a one. Well, this is actually the new count. Okay, 1 2 1 2. Okay, the reason why I believe this count is because of the small DE pattern at the small degree, which means we needed to have A, B, C, D, E. Very small, almost undetectable pattern, which to me is a bit too small for my liking, but for some reason it fits. For some reason it fits. That's all I can say. So therefore, this is my preferred count. Right? If there's something wrong with this analysis, then the other possibility could be that we are simply in a zigzag pattern that's already produced wave A, and this could be the end of wave B. Therefore, we'd need a move that is roughly this length, which would take us down to about 12,000. Okay, that would be a wave A because we need to see the first zigzag down. So as a target, the first target could be potentially $12,000. Okay, that could be the first target. The second target, well, we'd need to see that area first before we can assume if it's sharp and it keeps going down really fast, we could be looking at targeting quite potentially this low area here, right? But in saying that, there's another scenario, right? There's another scenario which can still fit this pattern, and that would be that this here is wave 3. Okay, so let's just forget the wave 1, these little wave 1s. Let's just say that this is actually wave 3 here. Okay, wave 3 here, wave 4 here. Okay, and then we would see that same move down. If this is not a zigzag, except there's a problem with something. The problem is wave 3 can't be the shortest. So therefore, the length would be about this long. So the first move down would be roughly down, back down to this level, which would then find support at the top of this move here, back in 2019. Okay, so that would mean that support will be found here, and that could be potentially wave A of a zigzag, and then we'd see some kind of a bounce followed by another move down. Okay, now what is the problem with thinking that this is possible. Okay. Well, first of all, just because we have a zigzag move down does not necessarily mean that wave B won't be expanded, right? It doesn't mean that we might see an expansion in this move to the upside where the correction doesn't necessarily happen all in a sideways motion, right? It's much like the Dow Jones. We could see B wave expand to the upside, much like we saw here in this pattern, right? So what we could see potentially is this type of thing with a B wave expanded up, right? But this is a much larger pattern, so therefore it's possible that the B wave to the upside could be much larger also. I'm not too sure how that's going to look, so don't worry about that. So these are the different things that I'm considering right now, all based on this pattern, which could be a 5-wave move. It could be a 1-2, 1-2, or it could be just a complete zigzag, which is less likely in my opinion. But I'm taking all of these things into consideration, given that the move itself, even though it looks kind of sharp, it's also kind of not sharp, right? It's not as sharp to the downside as, for example, the move up we saw in C wave for B, right? If it was that type of sharp, it would have happened already like this, which may have been a lot worse and may have provided more clues. So that's why I'm presenting you with a few different options here. As I get better and go along and observe more price action, I will be able to try and gauge a little bit more about what's going on there. But to me, I think the smoking gun happened with understanding this regular 5-wave move with an expanded wave 4 with a small wave 5, which means this is the top and we haven't seen much of a correction yet. So coming back down this far would be, I suppose, fairly sufficient for a retracement, as it's already 94%, right? It's already getting into the 90%, right? We're already into the 70, 80%. Going into the 90%, I think would make it sufficient enough for a retracement before potentially having price expand to the upside in its continuation of the trend. But to me, the first wave is done. However this progresses from here, it doesn't need to be full bear, given that Bitcoin tends to expand its corrections. And given alternation that can occur, well, if the previous wave 4s were expanded, potentially what we could see now is wave 2's expanding and that type of thing, which means that wave 2, the larger wave 2 pattern that we're going to see now, may be the one that expands even more into the future. So hopefully this has been some kind of help. I will post some charts in the coming days to sort of explain it a bit more, but for now, this is what I'm thinking, my train of thought, and thanks for watching.